In case you haven't been paying attention, Steam Next Fest is going on right now. This is the first time that the new version of Next Fest is happening, and so people were not sure what to expect by this. In today's video, I'm going to go through an analysis of Next Fest, but I'm not going to look at the data for games in Next Fest. I'm going to look at the UI and talk about how some of the design decisions of the UI could affect how you present your game or what you can expect out of a Next Fest in the future if they keep this same format. My name's Kyle. I make videos on game dev 2 times per week here on YouTube. Give me a subscribe right down there. From here, we're going to hop in and look at Next Fest and just go through and dissect all the new things in Next Fest and talk about them and what they might mean for upcoming games in future Next Fests. Next Fest this year, just like last year's, has its own sale page. When you first go into the fest, it looks just like all the other Steam Fests, with the fest banner at the top and a couple choices. We're going to look at mostly the home one here because that's probably what most passing players are going to do unless someone is really actively looking at Next Fest. First thing you're going to see that is different than last year is the live stream section, which used to take up this big section right here. We have a Discover Next Fest that seems to roughly be recommendations based on other games you've played. There's a couple interesting things that are going on here. You'll see that this new format is showing the game trailer, and in fact it's showing the first 10 seconds of the game trailer unless you hover over it like this. So if I mouse off there, you can see at the bottom, that's where you see that 10 seconds here. That means that the first 10 seconds of your trailer, if you're in Next Fest, are absolutely critical. Because unless somebody is actively going through this, the most they will see of your trailer is 10 seconds. Now, if you are actively going through it, you can click these and do it much faster, which is more likely when someone goes here, if they're actively looking, that's probably what they're going to do. So I'm kind of pretending that I'm browsing this as if I'm a player and I'm looking for a game. I'm really not looking at these for very long at all. In fact, my first decision is made in a couple seconds. So what that means as a person that's designing your store page is if you go in and the first slide is just some text and it's not actual gameplay, you probably lost that player. They're probably not going to go any further into the game. Really, when I was scanning those, I didn't look at this panel on the right hand side very much at all. I looked only at the trailer to the extent that I could see something, and then I pieced out. Those are some things to keep in mind. It seems like with the new Next Fest format, at least if this stays around, trailers are even more important, like the most important thing based on my basic shopping behavior, and that's really what I did when I looked through Next Fest to look at games. Let's talk about a couple other things now that the video is paused and look at this panel on the right hand side. The biggest thing that stands out to me is how much a demo is being pushed here. If you look at the screen real estate for the install demo button, that's roughly 2/3 the size of whatever these other two buttons are. Now, without already knowing that that was a wishlist button and a hide button, I, as a player, don't really know what they do. And so I'm not really likely to even click on them or pay attention to them. Just out of these buttons, my first thing is probably just to hit that install demo button. I'm not really a person that would play a lot of demos before I buy a game. I usually base my purchasing decisions entirely on the store page. I'll only play the demo if I'm really interested in the game, which means that I was already a wishlister, already a purchaser anyway. Only after you have hovered over this star, which is the new wishlist button, that you get a tooltip that tells you what it does. Similarly, when you hover over this, that's the ignore button. I'm not really sure why ignore was chosen to be put up here as like front and center. I'm not sure if a lot of people use this feature, maybe they do. I personally haven't used it ever. I think there's a lot of interesting strategies to build into that by looking at these UI elements and looking at the design for what Steam wants to present games as, so that you can think about how best to present your game if you do a fest like Next Fest. So one last thing to note here before we go on is that the short description size seems to be cut off a little bit shorter than the standard character limit for Steam short descriptions. So if you have a longer description, it's probably going to get cut off like this. Now, I didn't actually read this when I was going through for the most part. The most I ever looked at when I was looking for new games for myself was maybe the first 2 lines, and then that was only if the trailer was really interesting to me. If we head a little further down, these are familiar sections from last time. This is a really interesting choice for putting this section at the top on your wish list. I'm not quite sure about this section. It seems that since Next Fest is all about upcoming games, having a section that's before any of the other upcoming games that just shows me games that I've already wishlisted is an interesting choice. At best, gives me an opportunity to click this demo button And at worst, it gives me an opportunity to unwishlist those games. If we move on a little bit further down, we'll look at recommended for you. I think this is yet another version of Discovery Queue. I did find on some of my earlier visits to the site that the things in recommended for you aligned with the order and the type of trailers that I was shown at the beginning. So that's another way that players can come in and see this big side scroll carousel of games. In this one particularly, your capsule is going to be the most important, obviously, because that's what's shown. It's got to be something that really catches you. In that situation, if you have a capsule where your title is not very readable, then that's probably not going to catch players and probably not going to pull them in. Let's take a look at the tooltip that comes up when you browse over one of these, because that one's kind of been redesigned a little bit, and I think there's something interesting there too. You get the mini short trailer, you get your capsule just like before with the previews, but there's this massive install demo button at the bottom. So again, Steam is pushing the install demo really hard to players. One thing to note about that though is there is this discrete top right icon that's slightly different than the other star icon, and that's the wishlist icon. So why am I calling out the size of this, and why is that important? It's because screen real estate has a pretty strong correlation to the actions that a user will take when they go to a site, or the actions that a player will take when they go to a Steam page. That's mostly based on apps that I've worked on in the past, working with UI design and a couple other things like that, and I think it translates pretty well across most things on the internet. But you can see that the number one thing that's kind of getting pushed with NextFest is installing a demo. This guy at the top right, that's the add to wishlist star underscore icon, has taken a backseat. All right, so looking at that next element, this is a new one too, launch discovery queue. From what I was experimenting with, it seems highly related to those first two things, the video side scroll carousel and the small carousel of recommended games. Unfortunately, I can't really get this to load anymore, so I can't really show you that. In essence, what that would show is pretty much the same thing that's in the carousel at the top with the trailers that last 10 seconds before they scroll on. From here, the categories are a bit more familiar. This was just like NextFest in the past, where they would show you some top categories that you've played. I recently played some games like Chained Together, so that's probably why these things are here. So if we scroll down some more, we'll get to the last interesting bit on this page. If we go down to browse all titles here, you'll see once again things on your wish list are appearing at the top. That's an interesting choice, and I think the reason that that's there is that Steam is expecting people to go in and possibly click the star on games that they want to check out, and then maybe head down to this bottom element to play those demos, because playing the demo takes a little bit longer than just clicking star. But as a developer, that's a really interesting change, because it means now if someone were to go down here and browse through this list of titles, they would have to browse through a list of titles they've already wishlisted before they possibly get to yours. So if this is a pretty big pile of wishlists here, they may scroll for quite a while before they see new ones that they could wishlist. Once again, I think the sort order for these, just like last NextFest, is something around popularity. It seems to be the gist of what's going on. The same behavior as before. Install demo is given a lot of real estate. They all say coming soon because every game in NextFest is coming soon. And just like before, that little star meaning wishlist has taken a pretty small amount of screen real estate compared to installing a demo or looking at the other information about the game. Whether players know that star currently means wishlist or not, I don't know. That is a new addition that Steam's made, so my guess is probably not. But over time, assuming it doesn't change, people should learn that that star means wishlist and start using it appropriately. One last thing I want to call out about NextFest that is different, we're not going to look at these three buttons because they are essentially the same as last time, and that is live streams. As you might remember in the previous NextFest, live streams were a thing that were front and center on the page. They were the top element, and more or less everyone robo-streamed that. Not many people that I talked to or games that I looked at when I've been shopping in NextFest actually did a real live stream. I've also never seen anyone comment on anything in the live stream chat. I'm not sure how much that feature was used, and as a result of that, I think Steam has taken this and given the live stream a bit more of a backseat, which is actually kind of a good thing for you because you probably don't have to make a live stream anymore with it being kicked out here to the last page. The possible advantage of that is that it does give your game one more opportunity to be in at least one more section, but if you look at the player numbers or the watch numbers in these, they are tiny. According to these stats, at least, there's 4 people watching most of these games. It's a little suspicious that they all are 4, so I expect that number is probably incorrect. Moral of the story is live streams don't seem to be as much of a focus for Steam. They've put them off onto this page, and I have a feeling that for most people that visit the NextFest page, they're probably not going into every single section, and they may not pay attention to this nav bar at the top at all. So the only thing that many people might see is possibly directly on this homepage. So that's been a whirlwind tour of the new Next Fest format. Hopefully a little bit of this has been useful for you. I thought it'd be interesting to look at the design of Next Fest and think about how it might impact people and talk with you all about that. A little bit different style than my past videos. So if you all like this, let me know right down there in the comments. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, and I will see you next time.